They thought the meeting had ended. I wasn't supposed to be on the call. Clara's voice came first, low, playful, the one she only used behind closed doors. "Oh, come on, Ethan. We're not on camera anymore." Then his laugh. I hadn't heard it in years, but I'd recognized that arrogant rasp anywhere. Ethan Carr, my former campaign strategist. The boy genius who helped flip the Tidewater districts in 16. The one I took under my wing when nobody else would. Now the one whispering into my wife's ear when he thought no one was listening. "God, you're tense," he said. "You need to relax before your next firestorm with the old man." My jaw locked. The cursor blinked in the center of my screen like it was taunting me. "I told you," Clara said, almost singing it. "He's too busy protecting his image to notice anything. You're the one they trust now, not him. He's past his prime, Clara. And you're the future." Then I heard it. That slick, what sound you only hear when mouths meet like they mean it. I closed the laptop without saying a word. No explosion. No scream. Just silence. Back in my study, I poured a bourbon, neat, and stared at the dark window. They thought I wouldn't notice. That I'd keep smiling on camera, delivering speeches about dignity and service, while my wife let a junior snake coil around her in hotel rooms and private briefings. I looked around my office. The framed photo from the campaign trail in Roanoke. The signed letter from Biden thanking me for the infrastructure bill support. The lacquered bust of Jefferson my father gave me when I first won state senate. This was the empire I built. Stone by stone. Vote by vote. I sacrificed everything to build it. And they pissed on it behind a goddamn Zoom window. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. Instead, I kissed her forehead the way I always did before bed. Let her drift off beside me like nothing had changed. She still wore the same silk robe. Still used that same lavender hand lotion. She smiled in her sleep. Like she wasn't cutting me open with a dull knife. The next morning, she brought me coffee in bed. Kissed my temple. Told me she had a full day at the Capitol and would be home late. I watched her walk out the door in that fitted navy dress, same one she wore to my re-election party last year. Once she was gone, I picked up my phone and called an old contact. Vincent Radley, ex-FBI cyber unit. Now a freelance fixer. The kind of man who didn't ask too many questions unless you paid him to. I need digital surveillance. Everything on her phone, tablet, laptop. Backups, deleted messages, hotel logs. And him, Ethan Carr, financials, burner phones, call logs. If he scratches his ass, I want a timestamped report. Vin didn't blink. "You want eyes or dirt?" "I want both." That night, while Clara was at some working dinner, I was in the basement with Radley, watching a cloned iCloud backup scroll across my monitor. Texts, calendar invites, emails, hotel bookings under fake names. One entry made my breath stop. Quarters Hotel, room 607, 8 p.m. Use side entrance. The sender, Ethan Carr. The reply, same tie as last time? Winking face. The attachment, a mirror selfie of her, half undressed, smiling like I'd never seen her smile for me in years. I didn't rage. Didn't cry. I just sat there, watching that photo. Memorizing the angle. Her expression. The damn earrings she wore, the ones I gave her on our 10th anniversary. She wasn't just cheating. She was rehearsing her next role. The wife of the man who would replace me. I opened my leather notebook and drew a line down the center. On the left, James Halston. On the right, Ethan Carr plus Clara Halston. And I began listing what I had. Money? Advantage? Me. Public trust? Still me. Media contacts? Me. Allies in the house? Me. Skeletons in their closet? Soon to be mine. The notebook stayed open all night. By sunrise, I had the first 10 moves. I wasn't going to win her back. I was going to bury them both, politically, publicly, permanently. 2 days passed. I didn't flinch. Not when Clara touched my hand during a committee dinner. Not when she cracked her favorite joke with that fake little laugh that used to sound like home. Not even when Ethan Carr walked up to me in the Capitol hallway, grinning like we were still friends. "Senator Halston," he said, nodding with mock respect. "Hell of a job on that energy subcommittee amendment." I wouldn't have pulled that off. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Eye contact. "The works." "Appreciate it," I said. "But you always were good at making things look easier than they are." He didn't catch the venom. Or maybe he did and thought I was bluffing. Either way, it didn't matter. His funeral had already begun, and I was writing the eulogy. Vincent Radley's team moved fast. By Friday, I had the full package, GPS data from burner phones, payment trails, Even a private Snapchat archive Ethan was dumb enough to sync to his work email. There was a video, grainy hotel footage. They weren't discreet. Clara straddling him in a hallway like some intern groupie. That same goddamn navy dress, hiked up to her waist. I didn't watch the whole thing. Just enough to know how low they'd gone. And just enough to know how far I was willing to go to bring them down. Phase 1. Poison the water without getting wet. I met with Jared Liu, an up-and-coming freelance reporter with a chip on his shoulder and a nose for corruption. We sat in a dingy diner just off Route 250. No suits. No staffers. Just me, black coffee, and a flash drive. This can't trace back to you, Jared said as he slid the drive into his laptop. It won't. He clicked through folders, travel reimbursements that didn't match public calendars, bank transfers through shell nonprofits, hotel invoices billed to campaign expenses. His eyes widened. You're telling me your wife and Ethan are using state resources to bang in hotels and launder donor funds? I didn't answer. Just nodded once. He grinned like a dog who just sniffed blood. Shit, he said. This is a career maker. For both of us, I replied. Back at the Capitol, I returned to routine. Meetings. Hearings. Speeches. Clara was busy prepping for the upcoming budget summit with the governor. Ethan was right beside her, taking notes, whispering suggestions. I smiled at them both during press conferences. I complimented Ethan's insightful framing of a speech I'd written a year ago. I kissed Clara's cheek in front of cameras. All part of the theater. All part of the setup. A week later, Jared's piece dropped. Front page of the Independent Tribune. Conflict or collusion? Halston Chief of Staff under fire for questionable ties to advisor. They didn't name Ethan directly. Not yet. The article was clever, enough to raise eyebrows, not enough for libel. It hinted at favoritism, misuse of state housing reimbursements, blurred lines between public and private obligations. But those of us who knew the players, we understood exactly what it meant. The Capitol went quiet for a day, everyone waiting to see who'd speak first. Neither of them did. So I spoke. In a press scrum that afternoon, I praised the importance of journalistic accountability and transparency in all branches of government. Clara stood 10 feet behind me, smiling, pale. Her left hand trembled slightly. I noticed. I logged it. The cracks were forming. That night, she didn't come home. Said she was staying late at the office to clean things up. I didn't argue. Just poured 2 fingers of bourbon and watched the news cycle chew at her credibility. Phase 2. Isolate and accelerate. The next morning, I made a quiet call to Congressman Darnell Graves, chair of the party's ethics subcommittee. We'd butted heads before, but he owed me a favor from the redistricting fight 2 years ago. Off the record, I said, you may want to look into some budget anomalies in the governor's office. Might be time to put Ethan Carr back under the microscope. He paused. Is this about your wife? No, I said. This is about the integrity of public service. He chuckled. You always were a cold one, James. No, I said, calmly. I'm just never sloppy. That weekend, Ethan's name leaked. Not from me directly, I'm not that careless. But someone in Jared's office ran with a secondary piece. Governor's office entangled in quiet affair allegations? The online comment sections lit up. Hashtag car crash. Hashtag Capitol Clara. Memes. Speculation. Political gossip turned into headline fodder. Clara tried to control the narrative, gave a brief, stiff interview saying she was focused on her duties and would not be distracted by personal rumors. Too late. The stench was already in the room, and it smelled like betrayal and desperation. Sunday night, she came home early. No makeup, no heels, just sweatpants and bare feet, like we were back in law school, before the campaigns, before the donors, before everything. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen as I chopped onions. You saw the article, she said. I didn't look up. Which one? Her voice cracked. James, is this coming from you? I finally met her eyes. Held them. Calm. Cold. Unblinking. Do you think I would do that to you, Clara? Silence. Just the rhythm of the knife against the cutting board. You're the only one who would know how, she whispered. No, I said. Ethan knows a lot too. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That was the first moment I saw it in her face, not guilt, not shame, fear. The first resignation letter landed Monday morning. A junior policy analyst in the governor's office, some 20-something idealist who wanted no part in whatever scandal was brewing. By Wednesday, 2 more mid-level staffers had bailed. Quietly. No press releases. No explanations. The house of cards was wobbling. And I hadn't even pushed yet. Clara moved like a ghost that week. She kept up appearances, press briefings, ribbon cuttings, coordination meetings, but something had cracked behind her eyes. Her posture was off. Her sentences ended mid-thought. And every time she glanced at her phone, her expression dipped like she was reading a death notice. I didn't speak to her unless I had to, just enough to seem cordial. But I watched everything. Watched how her own staff started keeping their distance. Watched how the governor suddenly stopped mentioning her in public. Watched how Ethan stopped driving her home altogether. He was protecting his own neck now, and she was beginning to see it. Phase 3. Exposure with precision. I booked a private meeting with Kayla Voss, a rising star in the state attorney's office. We met at her usual hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese place, both of us dressed down like it was casual lunch. But the folder I handed her under the table said otherwise. Inside, printouts of internal emails, expense reports, 3 flagged contracts tied to Ethan's old lobbying firm, and a burner phone transcript that made it clear Clara had knowledge of it all. "This is real?" she asked, flipping through it. "Cross-referenced with hotel logs and city procurement archives," I said. "You'll find matching payment trails if you go through campaign disclosures from 2 cycles back." Kayla glanced at me over her bowl of pho. "You don't want to handle this internally?" I stirred my tea. "I'm not interested in managing optics. I'm interested in ending rot." She nodded once. "Consider it opened." The next domino fell 2 days later. Subpoenas were filed under seal. Quiet moves. But Ethan felt it. I saw it in the way he started showing up to work earlier, with tired eyes and no tie. Heard it in the panicked voicemails he left Clara, ones Radley forwarded to me in real time. "They're coming after me, Clara. This was supposed to be clean. I thought you said it was airtight." She never replied to his messages. I know that because I had access to both their phones by now. All she did was pace her office and refresh news feeds every 5 minutes. And then came the headline that ended all pretenses. "Car named in quiet state probe. Sources point to ethics violations in capital contracts." No denials this time. Just silence. That afternoon, I attended a closed-door party leadership meeting. I knew how they viewed me, old school, a bit too rigid, never flashy. But now? Now I was the only one who hadn't been caught with blood on his hands or his pants around his ankles. The Speaker of the House pulled me aside after. "You staying in the race?" he asked. "Of course," I said. He gave a slow nod. "You're the only one not drowning in the shitstorm." I smiled. "I can swim." Clara confronted me that night. I was in the library, flipping through one of my old law school casebooks like it mattered. She came in barefoot, arms crossed, hair tied back like she was trying to remind me of the woman she used to be. All of this," she said, voice tight. "You're doing it." I didn't answer. "James," she hissed, "I want to hear it from you. You set this in motion." I met her gaze. "You were careless, Clara. And arrogant. You thought no one would notice. You thought I wouldn't fight back." Her eyes glistened. "You could have just talked to me. You could have ended it quietly." I leaned back in the chair. "You didn't give me quiet, Clara. You gave me humiliation." Her shoulders sank. For the first time, she looked small in that room. Like someone who finally realized they were standing on the wrong side of a line they couldn't uncross. "I'll lose everything," she whispered. "Not everything," I said. "Just the things you don't deserve." She left without another word. Phase 4 was already moving. I had arranged an anonymous tip to a political watchdog pack, linking Ethan to 2 ongoing state development projects, both tied to Clara's office. I didn't need to prove full-scale corruption, just enough smoke to start a real fire. By the end of the week, the governor's office issued a statement. Chief of Staff Clara Halston will be taking a leave of absence pending internal review. That was the line they used. What they meant was, she's done. Ethan tried to go on offense. Scheduled a press conference, claimed political persecution, framed himself as a reformer being punished for asking hard questions. I watched it from my office with the sound muted. It was pathetic. Defensive. Too late. And just like that, the once glittering pair, my wife and her Wonderboy lover, were radioactive. No one answered their calls. No one vouched for them. No one remembered how promising they'd once looked. And me? I had just accepted a closed-door offer from the party's national committee, a full endorsement for a U.S. Senate seat. I hung up the phone, smiled, and poured myself a drink. The war wasn't over yet. But I had already broken their legs before they even realized we were racing. The invitation came printed on heavy cream stock, gold embossed seal at the top. Annual State Unity Dinner, hosted by the Office of the Governor. Black tie. Press allowed. Full attendance expected. It was perfect. A room full of donors, media, and power players. The place where reputations were shaped or shattered. Clara sent me a text the night before. You're still attending, I assume? Please keep things civil. This is bigger than us. I didn't reply, because it wasn't bigger than us anymore. It was about what's left of us, and what I was about to bury. She looked stunning, of course. Clara always knew how to dress for the cameras. Deep burgundy dress, sharp neckline, subtle diamond earrings. Perfectly composed. You'd never guess she'd been burning alive for the last 3 weeks. She greeted the donors with that same political smile, practiced warmth, calculated empathy. A performer down to her eyelashes. And Ethan? He showed up late. Alone. No tie. Unbuttoned collar. Skin pale. Starting like he knew the floor was about to fall out from under him. I made sure we sat at separate tables. Optics matter. Halfway through dinner, just before dessert, I excused myself from the party's finance committee table and made my way backstage. Waiting for me was Tasha Monroe, a trusted anchor from the state's biggest news network. She owed me for burying a drunk driving story about her brother a few years back. I called in the favor. You sure about this? She asked. Very. She nodded. He's mic'd up. He has no idea. The cameras were rolling already. Back on stage, Clara was giving closing remarks on behalf of the governor. And in these trying times, the people of Virginia deserve unity, transparency, and above all, trust in their leaders. Cue applause. Her eyes found mine in the crowd. She didn't know yet, but she would. Because behind her, 2 screens lit up, part of the usual backdrop for party videos. Only this time, the feed wasn't pre-approved. It was Ethan, standing off to the side of the stage, where a roaming reporter had just casually pulled him aside for comment. Live mic live feed. Live exposure. Did you knowingly authorize misuse of campaign funds? Ethan blinked. What? No. Who are you with? Is it true Clara Halston arranged travel accommodations for you under state contracts while your firm was privately consulting for her office? Ethan stepped back. This is bullshit. We've seen the invoices. And the private messages. You want to comment before it runs at 10. He looked off camera, panicked. Clara said it was handled. She said Halston wouldn't come after us. There it was. A pin-drop silence fell across the ballroom. The crowd turned. Murmurs. Forks frozen midair. Clara, still at the podium, went pale. She turned toward the screen just as the feed cut. I stood slowly, deliberately, and placed my napkin on the table. Tasha walked up to the stage to thank our hosts. Clara stepped back, microphone trembling in her hand. She didn't say a word. She just looked out at the room and saw it, the shift. Every donor, every senator, every journalist. Their eyes weren't curious anymore. They were calculating. Outside, on the Capitol Terrace, I lit a cigar. It was Ethan who found me first. You smug son of a bitch, he hissed. You did this. I took a long drag before answering. You did this. I just handed you the mic. He got in my face. Too close. You think you'll survive this? You think you're clean? I didn't flinch. I think I have 42 district chairs ready to endorse me tomorrow morning. I think the PACs are already shifting their dollars. And I think you better call a lawyer before you call a cab. He lunged, half-step. Security moved in fast. I didn't blink. He was escorted off the property while the cameras followed. Clara never came outside. Instead, she slipped out the back, escorted by a junior staffer like some political widow leaving a funeral. But her phone buzzed in my pocket. She still hadn't realized I cloned it. A message from her father. You humiliated this family. Fix it before it gets worse. It already had. The next day, headlines exploded. Halston camp stuns with surprise exposure at Unity Gala. Carr, Halston under official review by Ethics Commission. James Halston, still the clean one in a dirty game. She didn't go into work that day, or the next. By the end of the week, her resignation was announced through a one-sentence statement. Miss Clara Halston is stepping away from public service to focus on her family and personal matters. No press conference. No farewell tour. No dignity. Just a comma and a full stop. That night, she came home to pack. I watched from the doorway as she moved carefully, quietly, folding blouses she used to wear to meetings where people still respected her. You got what you wanted, she said without looking up. No, I replied. I got what I deserved. She zipped the suitcase shut. Stood straight. What happens now? I handed her the divorce terms. Clean. Brutal. She keeps her car, her clothes, and a modest condo downtown. No alimony. No split of my federal campaign fund. Nothing else. She read it once. Didn't argue. Just signed. As she left, she turned once at the door. There was a time I believed in us, James. I nodded. And you buried it for a headline. I didn't answer. She closed the door behind her. It took exactly 72 hours for Clara to vanish from public memory. By the time the next news cycle rolled in, she was a footnote. A scandal someone else quoted for context. Not a power player, not a headline, just another political casualty. Ethan, though. Ethan tried to survive. He showed up on podcasts, spun teary-eyed victim narratives about cancel culture, and a smear campaign orchestrated by bitter rivals. He said I was jealous, that I couldn't handle losing influence to a new generation. He called me a relic, an outdated symbol of a broken system. And I let him speak, because it's always easier to cut down a man who insists on standing tall. The Ethics Commission met behind closed doors. What started as a review of Clara's department quickly expanded. Turns out Ethan's firm had been rerouting funds from multiple public-private initiatives, tagging them as consulting services while pocketing kickbacks. Nothing shocking. But I made sure it all landed on the desks of the right committee members, with just enough anonymous legal pressure to trigger state-level subpoenas. I knew the timing. Budget season. Nobody wanted to be seen backing a dirty consultant with a paper trail this long. By the end of the week, 2 major agencies severed contracts with Ethan's company, citing irregularities. His name was poison now. I stayed quiet through it all. No press conferences. No gloating. Just kept doing my job, sponsoring clean water initiatives, attending school board roundtables, meeting with union leaders. All while my enemies choked on their own spin. The contrast worked. By the time the federal primary debates began, I wasn't just a survivor. I was a front runner. One night, alone in my townhouse, I read over the final divorce settlement. No appeals. No conditions. Clara had accepted the offer. Small Blue Diamond, no claim to my Senate fund. Small Blue Diamond, no alimony. Small Blue Diamond, minimal media response. She'd agreed to stay quiet. It was clean, bloodless, but final. I signed the last page. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. 2 weeks later, I saw her. By accident. Capitol Hill, just past noon. I was stepping out of a committee meeting, and there she was across the street, walking into a mid-tier legal firm. No aides. No cameras. Just a brown leather briefcase and a look on her face like someone forced to eat cold leftovers from a life that used to be hers. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't look long enough to admit it. The next hit came fast. Ethan Carr was officially indicted. Fraud, misuse of public funds, perjury. His mugshot hit every outlet in the state. Gone was the smirk. Gone was the charisma. Just a swollen-eyed coward in a wrinkled white shirt. Clara's name wasn't mentioned in the official charges, but everyone knew. And that was enough. She had no more TV spots. No board seats. No speeches to give. She didn't even show up at the next state gala. Back in Richmond, I took a private lunch with 3 senior DNC reps. They offered me their full endorsement for the Senate seat. You kept your hands clean, one of them said. No, I corrected. I just made sure no one saw the blood. They laughed, toasted, poured more wine. I drove home that night in silence. No victory playlist. No calls. Just the low hum of tires on asphalt and the faint flicker of campaign billboards already bearing my name. Halston honor. Experience. Strength. They had no idea what it cost. One last loose end. The burner phone Radley used to gather most of the early data, texts, locations, voice recordings, still sat in my safe. I took it out, scrolled through the old messages one final time. I stopped on the photo of Clara and Ethan outside that hotel, her laugh frozen mid-frame, hand in his. I deleted it. Then the next one. And the next. Until the screen was blank. Cold. Clean. The phone buzzed. A new text from a number I didn't recognize. You don't look tired. Thought power was supposed to age you. I stepped out onto the balcony, cigar in hand. Looked out over the city. I replied. Only when you lose. The debate was held in a grand hall at George Mason University, polished wood paneling, live feed to every major outlet in the state, and a row of stiff American flags standing tall behind the candidates like soldiers. It wasn't just a formality. It was the final gauntlet. 5 of us were on stage. But only 2 names mattered. Mine and his. Ethan Carr had somehow made it through the primaries, barely. Running as an independent progressive, desperate to rebrand himself as a reformer burned by the establishment. His PR team pushed the underdog narrative hard. Enough to make noise. Enough to scare the weak. But not enough to beat me. They gave us 90 seconds for opening remarks. He went first. Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you not as a perfect man, but as one who's faced fire and emerged stronger. I know what corruption looks like. I felt the blade in my own back. And I'm here to tear down the rot that career politicians like James Halston have built their careers on. I didn't even blink, because he was already sweating. His smile was tight, and when the cameras zoomed in, you could see the strain behind his eyes. He wasn't ready for this room. He never was. When my turn came, I didn't look at the audience. I looked straight at him. There was a time, I said, calm and slow, when I believed in my opponent. I gave him his first shot in this town. I trusted him with my campaign, with my policy, even with my home. A pause. Controlled. I let the words hang. And in return, he lied. He stole. He used people. Not just me. Not just my family. But the people of Virginia. The same people he now claims to care about. Ethan shifted. Swallowed hard. But I'm not here to speak about betrayal, I continued. I'm here to remind you that integrity still matters. That experience doesn't make you part of the problem. It makes you strong enough to fix it. Applause. Not wild. But solid. Clean. Earned. I didn't look at him again for the rest of the night. He stumbled through policy questions. Tried to pivot to populist nonsense. I stuck to numbers. Case studies. Federal pathways. Local results. By the time closing statements came, he was rambling about second chances and redemption arcs. I kept mine short. I've seen what power can do in the wrong hands, and I've taken it back. Now I'm here to use it for you. Afterward, the hall buzzed. Reporters swarmed. Pundits tweeted. Every exit poll showed the same thing. Halston dominates. Carr outclassed. One-sided slaughter. I walked through the crowd without saying much. Just nods. Quiet strength. The same people who used to hedge their bets now reached to shake my hand with both of theirs. They saw the future, and they saw my name stamped on it. That night, my phone lit up with offers. Cable news appearances. Endorsements. Donations. The DNC chair called personally to confirm. I'd be the official nominee. I said thank you. Hung up. Sat in my office for a long time without saying a word. It was quiet. Just me, a half-finished glass of rye, and the worn leather-bound journal I'd started months ago on the night I first heard their voices over Zoom. I flipped to the final page. That column I'd drawn, James Halston versus Clara plus Ethan, was still there. Faded ink. Stained from a water ring. I drew a thick black line through both their names. Then I closed the book. Election night. The ballroom at the Renaissance Hotel in downtown Richmond was packed wall-to-wall. Banners with my name hung from every beam. Blue, white, and steel gray. The new Halston brand. Less hope, more strength. I stood behind the curtain, suit perfectly pressed, earpiece buzzing with updates, the weight of silence pressing down like the moment before a gavel strike. Exit polls are looking good, sir, my campaign manager whispered. 74% of precincts reporting. You've crushed him. I nodded once. Didn't smile. Didn't celebrate. Because this was never about beating Ethan Carr. It was about erasing him. Clara's name hadn't appeared on any headline in weeks. Not since her brief post-scandal interview with some third-tier podcast, where she claimed she didn't know the full extent of what Ethan had done. Nobody bought it. Not the public. Not the party. Not even her parents. They'd issued a statement distancing themselves from recent events. She'd taken the condo. Sold her jewelry. Deleted her Twitter. And just like that, the woman who once ran half the state disappeared from the political map like she never existed. I walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. Not cheers of hope. Not the idealistic howling of 20-somethings with signs. No, respect. Fear. Admiration laced with caution. They knew what I'd done. And they knew I was the only one standing. Thank you, I began. No teleprompter. Just me, the mic, and a room full of power. This race wasn't about slogans or promises. It wasn't about who spoke louder or who smiled wider. It was about accountability. Pause. Let it sink in. For too long, our institutions have been mocked. Our ethics ignored. Our offices sold. I've lived through betrayal not just in my home, but in my work. And I chose not to collapse. I chose to stand. A single clap started in the back. Then another. Then a rising tide of hands crashing together. I raised one hand to still the noise. And now, I'll take that same resolve to Washington. Reporters crowded outside as I left the building. Flashes lit up like warzone flares. I gave them a wave. No comments. I had said enough. Back in the car, my driver passed me a chilled bottle of water. The city glided by in silence, glass towers, traffic lights blinking in rhythm, a capital still reeling from the storm I had unleashed. My phone buzzed once. Text from an unknown number. Congratulations. You finally got everything you wanted. I stared at it. No reply. I already had the only answer that mattered. 2 weeks later, I stood on the Capitol steps in D.C. Newly elected Senator Halston. The podium was taller, the stakes higher, but my voice? Still steady, still cold, still mine. Behind me, the skyline stretched across the horizon. A city of smoke and deals and shadows. A place where betrayal wasn't a scandal, it was currency. And I had learned to spend it well. I turned toward the cameras. Smiled. Not warm. Not kind. Just enough to signal. I'm not here to lead. I'm here to conquer.